What up, everyone? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. This episode is brought to you by JB Weld, the world's strongest bond. Pros have trusted it for over 50 years, but you won't even need a pro when you've got JB Weld around. Their adhesive products make it super easy to do it yourself. Whether it's a DIY project, an automotive repair, plumbing, marine, or more. For projects big and small at home or in your garage, use JB Weld. In fact, JB Weld products can be used on almost anything: metal, wood, plastics, glass, ceramics, and more. You keep it in your toolbox, keep it in your kitchen drawer, keep it in your truck, throw it in the glove box. You never know. Speaking of which, JB Weld just acquired Herculiner, the original DIY truck bed liner. So if you're looking for the world's strongest truck bed liner, Herculiner has you covered there as well. Don't spend hundreds or thousands of dollars having the dealer do it. You can do it at home with Herculiner for cheap, and it's just as good as what the pros are using. Be your strongest self. Use JB Weld, the world's strongest bond. JB Weld is available at jbweld.com, Walmart, Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, Napa, O'Reilly, Michaels, and more. JB Weld epoxy products are proudly made in the USA. JB Weld, we love them. How about Keeper Security? They are the leading cybersecurity platform for protecting individuals, families, and businesses against password-related cyber attacks, aka hacks and ransomware. The fact is, we have too many passwords. If you're reusing a weak password over multiple accounts or cycling 1 to 3 weak passwords, you are setting yourself up for an easy hack. If you're wasting time in the password reset loop, we all know what that is, right? You create a password, you don't log in for a while, you forget that password, reset the password, and then you repeat it indefinitely until the end of time. You're doing it wrong. If you're worried about your finances, the cost of a yearly Keeper subscription is nothing compared to the cost of a data breach. Less than $3 a month for a personal user, 7 months for a family plan of up to 5 users, and not to mention when you get hacked, you have to be worried about stopping payments, getting refunds, and changing all your auto pay bills. Ugh, what a nightmare. When you forget getting a new device, it takes forever to log into all your apps and accounts again. With Keeper, you can create strong, unique passwords for every account where you log in, like you know you should, but keep them stored safely in your own encrypted vault. All you have to do is remember your one master password. Also works with Face ID and Fingerprint ID, and then you can access all of your strong passwords without having to actually remember them all. This keeps your information safe from hackers, and it gives you peace of mind. Look, we can't cancel our passwords, but with Keeper, we can make them manageable. Listeners of the Smoking Tire Podcast are going to get 30% off Keeper Unlimited and family plans. So use promo code, you ready? SmokingTire30 at checkout, or visit keeper.io/smokingtire to learn more. All right? SmokingTire30 for 30% off at checkout, or keeper.io/smokingtire to learn more. We're also brought to you by HelloFresh, who is killing it. I just got my 3rd round of HelloFresh food. I got a chicken curry, I got a barbecued pork, and I got this like bulgogi bowl thing. It is awesome. With HelloFresh, you get pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. You skip trips to the grocery store. Count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable, and that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Here's why I like HelloFresh. Because I like cooking. I fancy myself to be a home cook. And a lot of times, like with these types of services, I'm like too proud. You know, I'm not a meal plan kind of guy. And I've tried the pre-prepared food that you get once a week and then microwave back up. I'm definitely not about that. But the problem is, you know, I can make a couple things pretty easily without having to think about it too much, and you get stuck in a loop where you're just making those basic things, right? You don't get creative, you don't dig into your recipe books, you don't really try to figure out something new. That's like work and brain power after a long day. With HelloFresh, you choose your recipes online. They have a bunch of stuff to choose choose from, right? And then the food and the recipe come to you together with like dry ice in a box. You put it in your fridge, and then you just open one bag a day, and there's everything you need to make this recipe for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, whatever you choose. And it's one big flashcard that shows you all the steps to make it, pre-measured ingredients, but it's like a whole pepper, a whole onion, a whole carrot. You're doing it all yourself, but there's pre-measured spices and sauces, so there's no waste at the end of it. You're not stuck with half a spice you're never going to use again, half a bottle of sauce you're never going to use again, so a lot less food waste. It is great. I love HelloFresh. They're really delicious, too. Me and Hannah have been eating all the food. I even gave the friend sharing one to my parents who are getting into it. So go to HelloFresh.com/SmokingTire12 and use code SmokingTire12 for 12 free meals, including free shipping. All right? SmokingTire12 and use code, HelloFresh.com/SmokingTire12 and use code SmokingTire12 for 12 free meals, including free shipping. All right? HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. It is delicious. And to get you in the mood for that kind of delicious cooking levels, Tradecraft Farms is the official cannabis provider of the Smoking Tire podcast. If you live somewhere in the civilized world where it is legal, then by all means, ask for Tradecraft by name at your local dispensary or purveyor. If you're in the state of California, go check out the Tradecraft dispensary, factory direct stores. They grow, they're totally vertically integrated and serving the Southern California community epically, I might add. If you're not in a state where you can acquire these products legally and safely, then just give them a follow at Instagram, Tradecraft Farms, and add Fire. Fire is the golden joints. They are the coolest. THC, CBD, and everything in between, edibles, smokables, vapables. You know all the drill. Tradecraft Farms is the official cannabis provider of the Smoking Tire podcast. All right, on this episode of the show, we've got the host of the RM Sotheby's Collector Car Podcast, Greg Stanley. We are going to be talking about the results of the Amelia Island auction, trends in the marketplace, and where we see the current state of collecting cars. Very interesting conversation. Really nice guy. I really dig this one. It's the Smoking Tire Podcast.
All right. Dropping in. The used car, classic car, modern used car, secondhand car market is crazy right now. It is a seller's market. It is a, man, if you've got one of a couple of things, I read an article this morning that said, if you have a Toyota Tacoma right now, you are sitting on a pile of golden rainbows. And while Tacomas are certainly interesting, collector cars, fancy, schmancy, high dollar, caviar eaten auction cars are more interesting, and that's why Greg Stanley is with us from RM Auctions, and he's a car consultant, and we just had the Amelia Island sale, and hello, sir. How do you do? Welcome.
I'm great, Matt. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for Zach's help. It's awesome to be on your show. I'm a big fan of it. Listen to it all the time.
It's a perfect time for you to be on, and thank you for the kind words, because it's a fucking shit show out there right now. I mean, if you're a seller and you have something that's worth any value at all, you know, now is the market. And people don't really ask me about car selling advice. They ask me about car buying advice. And all I could tell anybody right now is that if you value your dollars, don't buy anything. Stop. It's a problem. What say you, Greg?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think even your little joke at the beginning about the Toyota Tundra, I mean, those things are going up. You know, the old 4Runners from the early 90s, the late 80s, all that stuff is kind of on fire and doing really well. I was fortunate to buy the last generation of the Toyota FJ, and, you know, it's rare. You
mean like the FJ Cruiser?
Yeah, yeah.
The FJ Cruiser is so funny because it was my first car review ever.
Really?
And I hated it. Like, it was my first not my first car review, but my first press car ever. And I hated it. And Toyota didn't give me another car for a really long time. But the people who had them held on to them, wouldn't get rid of them, loved them. I went to a business that's exporting them back to Japan by the truckload and boatload. And Greg, these things are worth money now, FJ Cruisers.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I didn't like it the first time I touched it because, the first thing you touch is the door handle and it's plastic. But once I got in it, the visibility wasn't as bad as I thought. It drove nice. I'm not a big off-roader, but I'm thrilled to have it. And that's one of those cars, one of the modern quote-unquote collectibles out there, even though that's still fairly new. But yeah, things went nuts at Amelia. I mean, we were expecting $40 million, and we hit $43 million in sales. Some stuff just exceeded expectations, which is really interesting to see.
Do you think the demographic of buyer has changed and there's newer money coming in, or do you think it's the same old folks that just didn't eat as many nice dinners and go on as many vacations in the last year, and they're they're just a little bit richer and more ready to spend?
Honestly, it's a little bit of both. We do have a lot of new folks coming in. I ran the numbers as far as like our stuff that's sold by like generation or by decade, and the stuff that sold, the stuff that was in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, it sold above estimate. It was just crazy to see what they were doing. And strangely enough, we still have some of the old stuff selling. I mean, the biggest seller was our Duesenberg, a 1929 Duesenberg that exceeded expectations. I think it was by over $1 million. And so even the old stuff is still selling. So there was a lot of cool stuff happening. Some of the generational shift is going away from the 50s and 60s cars. Yeah. But there's some outliers like the Cadillacs, the Bromes and the Barretts. Those are exceeding expectations because those are kind of the halo cars from that generation. And I think some of those cars like that will be collectible forever. You'll see some up and downs and stuff, but people always want a Brome. They always want a Barretts.
And there's not a lot of Baritzes, right? I mean, they're pretty rare too. I mean, and a big fin-tail caddy, those expressions of jet age design, I think, are very timeless. And where it drops out, where I see it dropping out, is not at the high end with the Baritzes and the Continentals, but in the middle. Like, who the fuck wants just like a Ford sedan? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, and with the exception of the Rat Rod crew and the ironic hot rodding crew, there's not a lot of value in stuff like that. And so there's a lot of value there's not a lot of collectability in stuff like that long term because those people just age out, but I'm not surprised to see that 2000s are way up and 90s because what everyone my age, my friend group wants, even like I don't have any friends that want 60s and 70s shit right now. All my friends want stuff from the 90s because they want to be able to use it a lot.
Right.
They want to be able to take it anywhere they would take their regular car at any time. No one has the patience in today's world to put up with like true old car bullshit, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You are right on. I think muscle cars like the late 60s, those will hang around because they can keep up with traffic. It's easy to put some of the amenities on there that you like. But the generational shift is pretty insane. I mean, we've got the hypercars, the supercars. Your Countach, it's been soft lately, but I'm sure that thing's going to go back up. But
people are asking a lot for Countaches. I mean, I heard from some experts that it's soft. But if I've just found several listings in Europe that are asking really big money for these cars. I mean, either they're asking and secretly under the table selling for half that later, or I don't know. I think maybe so few Countaches are for sale at any time that if you're interested in a Countach, you have to look at every car that's for sale globally at any given time, right? I'm impressed I'm more impressed that it took Diablos as long to come up as it has. Yeah. Why did it take a Diablo so long to come up?
I think it got kind of a bad rap from being, kind of like the Countach, hard to see out of, a little uncomfortable. I mean, to me, they're gorgeous. I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous. And the first supercar I ever saw in person in 1983 was a 1983 Countach at the Racket Power in Jacksonville, Florida, in the parking lot. So I love your car because that's the first one I fell in love with in person.
They'll stop you in your tracks, one of them cars. I mean, and every time my car leaves the garage, every single time, someone tells me it's the first time they're ever seeing one. You know what I mean? It's and you just don't see them around on the street. So I try to take mine out and as much as possible and let people check it out. But Diablos were way too cheap for way too long. They're not that bad.
Right. Yeah, and they're coming back up, and they're beautiful cars. You know, they're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple other things I picked up from our recent sale, like, you know, you'll be on my podcast shortly, and you have a love for the Ferrari F40. I think for a long time, you know, those things were staying around a mil two, and you're lucky now if you can get one for under 1.5. Those things have really seemed to have taken off.
Yeah, here's one we sold, $2 million. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
ahead,
that's
Greg.
the one we sold at Amelia. That one sold strong. I mean, it was a U.S. spec car, had 3,000 miles on it. You know, had all the right stuff.
Wait, wasn't that Nigel Mansell's car?
I believe it was.
Yeah. So I mean, isn't there a Nigel Mansell tax on that too? Ferrari delivered to F1 driver in period while driving for Ferrari. That adds value. That adds value.
But look,
I love an F40, but fact is, they made about 65% as many F40s as they made Countaches. They made it by ultra rare Ferrari standards. They made a lot of F40s.
I think their reputation though is so good.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
You know,
I fucking want one.
Yeah.
I want one, and I was always surprised because they seem to level out around 1.2 for like a while, and I don't know if that's because the service cost was so high relative to the value. I don't know if it's because people just were like, yeah, they made a lot of them, and to get to this next level, you need more rarity than that. Is that what you think?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the F50s. I mean, those are what 349 of them made, and they're $3 million. You know, they're more than twice the price of the F40. You know, mostly because of rarity, and obviously it's a great car as well. Even go back to the 288 GTO. I mean, that's been beat up a little bit because it looks a little bit like the 308s, but it's a gorgeous high performance machine that's $2.5 million. And like you said, it's the rarity piece of it. So that's why that F40 is a little bit below those two, but the love has come on strong for those F40s.
I mean, to highlight rarity, here you have a 599 GTB, one of 30 with a manual, and it went for $700,000. So that's
long play. That's a good buy.
Half the price of an F40, but this is a car that's 25 years newer, or no, 17 years newer. But it's like a modern, it's a modern car. It's silver, and there are only 30 of them though. And
it's not an ugly color.
Right.
Of the 30 manuals, half of them are probably colors you don't want.
And the other half are red.
I was gonna I was gonna say the other half are not red.
I love a red Ferrari, but
I will pass on red Ferraris. A silver 599 in a stick is good, objectively.
I'm probably going to upset some people here, but that car is like, to me, a 996, and that it looks good from all directions except the front. I'm just not crazy about the front end on that.
I'm kind of on board with you.
I'm completely jaded by the fact that I'm friends with Jason Castriota, who designed it, and I am willing to give leeway to Castriota because the rest of it is so cool. Remember when that car came out, the 599, that buttress thing, the flying buttress instead of a big wing, people were like, "I'm sorry. What have you done here?
Look at this.
That is the shit."
So good.
Yeah. We had these back in the day when I worked at Gotham Dream Cars, and we would go really fucking fast.
Returning those cars was great. Yeah, it's great.
We would mob the 599s.
They ignored their traction control a lot in straight line.
Yeah. What traction control?
They really did.
Yeah.
I will say the only car I have in my garage right now is a 996. So
that's okay.
I love 996s.
They're nice cars.
Well, I actually want to make a T-shirt that has a 996 from the front instead of headlights. It actually has the fried egg on it, and it says "Embrace the egg." You got to embrace it because it drives like a 911.
Blip Shift would like to make that shirt because they're all about positivity and embracing things. They won't let us make negative shirts, which means that after making 3 or 4 shirts, we completely ran out of ideas.
We're terrible. We're terrible people.
I'm sorry. Are you telling a New York Jew they can't make negative jokes? I'm sorry. How do you expect to make any money here?
That's right.
But wait, can we go? So obviously, the part of the reason that the 90s and 2000s cars are big, I think, is generational. The other part, I think, is that they're the most usable because they're the newest. You know, they have probably air conditioning that works and stuff like that, and they're not going to overheat and blah 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 blah. All the reasons we know. But do you have a breakdown of buyer by age? Is the buyer getting younger, or are the same people just generational shifting as well?
You know, I don't have that specifically, but I have read a lot of articles about that, and they do have that. I mean, you can look at some of the Haggerty data, and it's unbelievable. You know, you look at who is making the quotes or requesting the quotes on insurance rates for particular cars. When you dig into the data on that, it's insane of what the millennials and the younger kids are requesting, and it's really cool stuff because it is that earlier stuff, the early 2000s, the late 90s. You know, I mean, I saw an article recently, like the F-150 pickup truck is huge with millennials.
Oh,
like, who would have thought that?
Well, you know what? I'm looking around on my commute to work every day to here. It's here at the shop. I drive by a place called Checkered Flag in Venice. Yep. You know that place?
Yep.
Pretty well known classic car store, and it's a classic car dealership, proper showroom, old school, and it's funny because I can literally watch trends in their showroom window. They went from selling all the fucking 129 SLs. Like they had every R129 SL for like a year. And then like 2 years ago, they had like every 964 Porsche you could fucking find. And now they have the whole front window is full of 1993 to 1996 F-150s and Broncos.
Really?
Yep.
Right.
And
96 F-150.
The last where it's boxy but with that rounded nose. $32,500 for a 93 F-150 XLT. Bro, there's some fucking gardeners right now sitting on gold. Cash out.
There's the construction workers, yeah.
Yeah. So it's those last squared off F-150s and Broncos. Huge right now. Look, now there's the Bronco. Yeah, $44K for an '89 Bronco. Get the fuck out of here.
It's brown. It doesn't. Yeah,
that shit used to be exact. Have to be exact OJ spec to get $40,000.
Yeah, everything else was $5.
Yeah.
I have a friend with a green one. It's built and stuff, and it's like it's nothing.
The difference between the one used in The Crime by the Criminal and any other color is a 10. Is that more or less than the McQueen Premium?
What a wonderful world.
Somebody get Colin Comer on the phone from Haggerty.
Yeah.
We need to do McQueen Premium versus OJ Criminal Use Premium.
Well, you need hero versus villain in terms of.
Oh, that's a fucking great story.
We got it. Yeah,
that's good. The hero tax versus the villain tax. What adds more value? Now that's very interesting.
Idea. I might have to steal that. I already did an episode on the McQueen, factor. What would the McQueen car bring? I overshot it a little bit, but
what would you guess, and then what was it actually?
I guess like 4.3, and it sold for 3.8, something like that.
Oh, $1 million? What car are we talking about?
The Bullet Mustang.
Oh, the Bullet Mustang, right. I remember I went to Pebble Beach a few years ago, and it was really interesting. I think it might have been at the RM auction, though. It may have been one of your competitors. I'm not sure. I went to all of them. But 2 Ferrari Lusos. 1 resale red tan. Immediately behind it, McQueen brown. Otherwise, 2 for the same Ferrari Lusos. Impeccably restored, beautiful, right? Red Lusso, resale red, boom, $3 million. Right behind it up the lot, brown McQueen Lusso, $9 million.
Whoa.
It was a 3x premium for the same car.
What's going to happen when the younger generation that has never heard of Steve McQueen starts having money? Like, I mean,
Paul Walker cars, dude.
Right.
Paul Walker cars.
Do we think this is going to continue forever, or is it just going to be a generation thing where his notoriety fades and he is replaced?
Yeah, I mean, they sold his sunglasses for $90,000. I mean, what's the multiple on that? You know?
Someone was probably trying to scrape some DNA and clone.
I was going to go there, but dirtier, so I'm glad you did. Yeah.
Well, what about at Bring a Trailer last week? The transaxle from James Dean's Porsche sold for $400K on a stand.
Yeah,
that's
just
so
nuts.
Yeah, and no one under 50 knows who knows. I mean, we know the name James Dean, but none of us have seen Rebel Without a Cause.
Whether or not they can verify that is actually.
No, I think it is real.
It is.
It is real. Yeah,
okay.
It's as real as it gets with that kind of thing, right?
Right. Yep, it is. And the thing is there's supposedly 2 other packages of parts out there that 2 other people own. You know, so if that guy that bought the transaxle, is he going to pay that much for whatever these other parts are to try to get some semblance of a complete car?
Well, I don't know. Wasn't it cursed? Wasn't all the wreckage cursed? Bad things kept happening to people that had the wreckage, so they split it up to break the curse. That was the thing.
Nicolas Cage is going to bring them together.
Right. National
Dan
Treasure
Brown.
3.
Yeah. Tom Hanks is going to solve this mystery.
I'd like to see that. I'd love to see the James Dean transaxle worked into National Treasure 3. Like that. If you combine Fast and the Furious and National Treasure, instead of what they've done by combining it with Mission Impossible, that would be fun.
Someone listening is starting to write that script right now in LA. Someone's going to do that. It's going to be Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Dean, you know,
Hobbs, Shaw, and Cage.
We got to find this aluminum body.
And Ben Gates. Ben Gates, yeah. Shaw, Hobbs, and Gates.
You know, the VIN number or whatever it is.
Zach and I have early access to Fast 9. Yeah. We're going to go see it at the Chinese Theater.
Fuck yeah.
Very, very exciting. We get about 100 milligrams of Tradecraft Farms edibles going, and it's going to be, we're going to space with Tyrese.
Oh, my God. I'm excited. I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Wait, let's go back to the Amelia sale, though. What were some other super heavy, surprising hitters? What do we really need to be looking out for right now?
Well, some of the stuff, unfortunately, I hate this trend. Some of the low mileage stuff went for crazy money. So I'm a driver of my cars. I don't ever mothball anything to try to make it appreciate. But there's a red Speedster on there, 911 Speedster, 1994. I probably can't miss it when you see it.
964 Speedster, yeah.
And that thing went, I think the low estimate was like 150. It sold for like 190. Had 12,000 miles on it.
I'm not entirely shocked. Yeah. 94, you know, it's a 964, totally usable car. Red with red wheels is a great color. Guards red.
Disagree.
I mean, you know, for sale, you know, red over black, it works. Ugh. Black top, not. The red wheels.
No
is that
good.
That's like the not was it pre-exclusive manufacturer? It's like the Dreams department or whatever, Specialized Dreams or whatever.
Probably, yeah. That's not for me. There's another one talking about the next gen. There's a 1990 Mercedes 300 SEL, nothing special, but it only had 8,000 miles on it. So the estimate was like 15 grand, and it sold for like 85 grand.
How much?
So 35 grand.
35,000 for a mint SEL. Oh wow! Yeah. So here's what that is. That is just a drunk. That's just a drunk person that didn't give a fuck. I mean, because the difference between, you know, 10 grand and 35 grand for the kind of person that's had 6 drinks at the Amelia auction, you know what I mean? That's a fuck it purchase. That's like a, let me get this gull wing and I'll tow it around with this mint 300 SEL. I mean, the pictures look amazing.
It's clean. Yeah.
But also, here's the thing. If you really wanted one of these, how much would you have to pay a car hunter to find one this nice or nicer, and how long would you have to wait for it? You know?
Yeah, the only reason it's in Amelia is because it's such a nice car, you know?
It looks brand new. Look at the pictures. It looks brand new. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like this is someone who used to get taken to school in this back in the day by their dad, and now they've done well, and they're like, I'm going to buy my dad's car.
Well, look, dude, I know for a fact of someone that has a lot of money who I hang out with from time to time that paid 6 figures for a diesel Mercedes wagon, like an 80s Mercedes wagon diesel. Like the nicest one I've ever seen, bar none, by a lot. Really the nicest one I've ever seen, but paid $100,000 for it.
Jeez.
For a 300 T fucking D, man.
Because they were drunk at an auction? Or
no, because he liked it.
Okay.
He wanted it, and he said, "This is the best one in the world, and money doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I don't give a fuck if it was 100 or 200. I mean, what? It didn't matter. Just doesn't matter." And you know, 34 on a 15. That's not even that crazy. I thought he was going to say 300 or something.
Well, check out the.
Here we go. How about the Evo 2? Evo 2. What did that go for? The 190 Mercedes 2.516 Evo 2. The youngins, the youngins, $379,000. Yeah, see, now we're talking. The youngins, people my age, 40 and under, we love us a European homologation car. If you want to park money in something, a European homologation car is a good place to do it.
It's a good-looking car. Looks badass.
It does.
We
have one here at WCCS, and I really like looking at it. It's very fucking cool. You got what, Greg?
We had a dark blue Lancia at Scottsdale. It was in nice shape, not perfect, but man, that thing looked really good. You're right about that. Yeah. Hey Zach, take a look at the LFA. That thing went kind of nuts.
Ooh, well, it's an LFA in a great color. It's like a really nice gray, but it's got a golden kind of reflection in this sunset photo. $720K.
Yeah, low estimate was 425.
I think the low estimate was low.
Yeah.
Are there how many miles are on this thing? Unless there's like a lot of miles on this thing, that's a pretty low estimate. 500 miles?
Under 500 at time of cataloging?
I think your estimators were not right.
They only made
delivered
500.
to Larry Miller. I mean, via Larry Miller Lexus, not to Larry Miller. I was going to say if it was Larry Miller's car, because he's the Miller Motorsports Park guy.
Oh, I thought you meant the comedian actor.
Oh no, that would be amazing. The really dry comic, the one from all the
jab your eye out with my thumb. I shit you not. Yeah,
if that was, imagine that dude rolling up an elephant.
Great, he's really funny.
I think
these cars are very.
Your
special.
estimators were low.
Special.
That's a $700,000 car at 500 miles.
That thing is really nice. Those are getting really strong.
Yeah.
It has the driving experience is worth the money. The story's worth the money. The tech is worth the money.
Yep.
These will be very, very expensive. I mean,
and they tend to work properly.
Yeah.
We never, once they came out, no one ever actually, as it turns out, after all that, this thing's a piece of shit. Like, they're actually really nice.
I wrote the buyer's guide for Haggerty's YouTube channel about this car, and I tried to find stories online of services and problems, and granted there's so few of them, I couldn't find any.
Yeah.
I couldn't find people in forums going like, by the way, you know, the drive shafts give out or something. There was just like no evidence of big problems. Yeah.
Yeah. I love LFAs so much.
What's your opinion on first generation Vipers?
I just turned the corner. I just turned the corner on the ones the ones that don't have windows and shit. Like really, like 93s. I just turned the corner on 92s and 93s.
All right, how about the 1.5, like the 2000s?
Nope. Nope. You know why? No side exhaust. No thank you, is what I say.
Yeah.
And also, I hated the chrome wheel era.
Oh,
the Vipers, listen, the problem with American car companies is they listen to their customers. And after the 93, some fucking guy who normally drives a base automatic Corvette convertible was like, yeah, I'd probably buy one of those if it came in yellow with chrome wheels. And they're like, okay, sir, here you are. And then the guy didn't fucking buy it, and they kept making ugly shit like this.
Yeah,
the
spokes are really thick, so it's a lot of chrome.
It's meat. It's like the meaty chrome.
I think it's a good-looking car, though. I mean, it looks cool.
Well, you change those wheels are no bueno.
I mean, side exhaust is definitely better.
And they did come with exhaust in the 1.5, so I can't totally hate. But I really I'm about the very early cars right now. Because there's a guy in my neighborhood in Marina Del Rey who drives one with 193,000 miles on it.
Wow.
It's the most beat Viper you've ever seen. And this dude rolls it dirty every day. Just real into it. And so I've all of a sudden come to respect it. Because you can live 100 yards from the ocean with one and daily it for 25 years, and it'll somehow still be working. I don't understand why.
Well, two people had to have that yellow one. That thing sold for like over 60 grand.
I can imagine Vipers coming up. You know, I mean, they're you know, we're very, very quickly moving away from analog sports cars that are fast but not insano fast. I mean, we've never had more choices if you want a 600 horsepower all-wheel drive paddle shifted vehicle. We've never had more choices, and it's just ridiculous. But we have no choices if you want, you know, or very few if you want a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, you know, with a manual. I know, yes, there are a couple, but
very few.
And we have very few choices of sporty, reliable coupes, you know, that you can buy. And so, you know, getting a Skyline or a Supra or a 300ZX or an E46 M3, something like that, you know, that's very appealing because you pretty much can't buy those experiences anymore, you know?
Right. Yeah, I'd love to have an E39 or whenever the R34 started coming across.
Skyline? R34 Skyline?
Yeah.
Let's see, 2023. I believe will
3 more years.
Is that right?
2 more years? Yeah.
25 years. Yeah. Well, what's happening now is, you know, our buddy Sean at Top Rank Importers, you know, they've got a big warehouse over in Japan, and they'll sell you one over there, and then they'll store it for you until the very day it can be put on a boat, and then they'll put it on a boat here. And because, you know, to wait until those things become legal, you know, you have to balance the math, right? Parking the cash now, literally, in a car that's in another country, you know, paying whatever the storage fee is. I don't think it's exorbitant, but there is a storage fee, you know, for literally years until this thing is ready. You know, you're hedging against the fact that once it is legal, you know, prices are going to spike on these things like nobody's business. Yeah. And they're selling them over there deep into the 6 figures. Deep. Yeah, for the R34 GTRs.
Yeah, they're beautiful cars. I mean, I love the R32s. Those are nice enough. So.
Dude, R32 is 80% of an R34's driving experience for less than 50% of the money. You don't have the 6th gear, and the 34 is a little more refined, but the feel of the engine, the gearbox, the steering, you know, the responsiveness, the fact that it feels way more modern than its time and very, very analog, but also advanced. That's there with a 32, and you can get into one for under $40,000, and versus, you know, a 34 that's going to be a lot more expensive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Zach, pull up the Duesenberg if you can.
So who's all of a sudden deciding that Duesenbergs need to take a big spike? I mean, Duesenbergs are very beautiful, very rare, but we sort of thought that they had their day, and they now are, you know, sort of history book type items, right?
It's the best of the best brings money. So this is a one-off, factory built, bare metal, boat tail Duesenberg, and it overachieved estimate like over $1 million higher.
Right. Well, here we're not just working with the fact it's not just a Duesenberg. It's a Duesenberg that has a unique body, because a lot of the other Duesenbergs, you know, were different coach builders, but you know, you could get a variant that would be similar to other ones, right? And this one is almost like it's like a Speedster, basically. It's really pretty.
Bare metal.
It's bare metal also, which is fucking so
it's
badass.
Hot. It's hot.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So fun fact is that the Duesenberg was actually the fastest car of the decade for 1920s and 1930s. 2 decades. Fastest car in the world at the time.
Is that Doozy, Ohio license plate from the 20s? Is that an actual real functional plate, or is that just for fun?
No, it was. I believe it was an actual functioning plate.
Oh, he actually got the plate Doozy in Ohio? That's kick-ass.
Well, there was only 7 people there in 1929.
That's a good point.
Right. Only one of them could afford a Duesenberg. But
yeah. Wow, this engine is just gigantic, straight 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
These things are so fucking cool, man.
I won't get it exactly right, but like all the Duesenbergs were made in 1928 or 1929, but they were titled when they sold. So, you know, they sold in 30, so it was a 1930 model. So it's crazy to think that this was the fastest car for 20 years.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just nuts.
I mean, it was very fast for its time, but in fairness, the Great Depression literally killed not only Duesenberg, but anyone else's efforts to build big, flashy, fast sports cars globally for like a little while. You know, Great Depression followed by World War II.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you didn't really get faster until you got to like, you know, the late 40s, right? Middle 40s.
That's true. And then people started building fast stuff after that.
After World War II, you started going like Auto Union and...
that's when the Jaguar XK120 came out, which after the war, they started building fast shit again.
Yeah.
And that was the fastest car for a year or two.
For a minute, and then you had the 300 SL after that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have you ever driven a Duesenberg, Greg? I've never driven one.
No, you know, I actually got a ride in one, and it was pretty hilarious because we were taking it for a test drive for a client, and you know, you want to make sure everything works, and so the guy that was test driving was putting it through the paces pretty hard, and we were in this big parking lot, and all of a sudden the battery cover, which is on the side of the car above the running board, flies off and goes skittering across the parking lot about 100 feet. So it was a spirited drive. The one I've been in was a lot of fun. So.
Does it have normal controls? Are the pedals and shifter and stuff where you expect them, doing the things you expect them to do?
For the most part. I mean, they don't have, you know, synchronized shifting and all that. So you definitely have to finesse it a bit to get it figured out.
But it's not like the fucking pedals are backwards or anything, like, right? Like there's some stuff from I've driven stuff from the 20s where it's like, okay, the gas is on the left and the clutch is in the middle and the brake is on the right. And you're like, what?
It's an outstanding car for sure.
No, these things are super
Matt,
pretty.
You were mentioning, you know, people want comfort, performance, and all that kind of stuff. I think this is a trend coming in the future. What do you think about pro touring cars that are probably about 5 or 6 years old?
Wait. You mean like someone who built a pro touring car 5 years ago and is now selling it to auction?
So think about the auctions. You got those sick Corvettes that have LS3 engines, AC power steering. They have a C6, chassis and everything. Spent 300 grand on them. What happens 10 years later?
I have always I've been surprised usually because conventional wisdom says nobody's going to pay up for your project after you're done with it. But then, I don't know about RM, but when I go to Barrett Jackson or Mecum, I'm surprised at the fact that some of those types of cars end up bringing pretty big money because people don't necessarily want to sit through a year of a build process. They just want the thing and to drive it now.
They're great, but I think to your point, there are really good bargains to be had on those because some of those builds we used to film for Big Muscle and they were six figures.
Yeah.
They were $1,200,000, $300,000 cars. And that was early 2000s, the height of like American Chopper, Boyd Coddington's show, like it was like kind of the most popular, lucrative time for hot rods. I think that's when we were seeing stuff at auction go for like 500 grand for a numbers matching CUDA and all that kind of stuff. And then that calmed down a bit and the generational change. But I think people my age and your age, they can combine what the modern driving of like a 90s car with the looks of a 60s car, and you can get that for probably a third the price. It'll still be expensive. I think they're going to get popular again and appreciated, but I don't think they're going to return to the price they cost to build. They're just so expensive.
No, there's no way. Yeah, I
don't
agree.
really see the value, and then I continually see people paying too much for them.
I mean,
there's in town. His whole business model is 4 Corvettes a year. Selling 280, a 320, all 63 split windows or 58s or whatever. Beautiful cars though, really nice.
Those are those are very expensive split windows.
I mean they're really C3 Corvettes. Every time I drive one, I'm impressed at how bad they drive. They really are much worse than you expect them to be. Whereas like 356s. Are way better, actually. They have like brakes that work and stuff, stuff like that. What about sort of is there anything in the malaise era that is worth watching? I mean, or is there really is it anything between, 75 and 84 is pretty much just don't even bother? This point,
you got a 78, Trans Am, Bandit Trans Am. You got the Grand National from '86. You got a couple in there. Honestly, it's all European stuff.
Are Grand Nationals on the way back up? I thought they peaked out a few years ago and were really settling back down to almost no one gives a shit prices anymore.
They're still pretty strong. I mean, you'll see them trade at 65 to 90 now.
Okay.
You know, they were going over 100 there for a while.
65 to 90. That's, you mean a GNX, right? Not a Grand National for 65.
Yeah.
A
GNX. But the Grand Nationals are still strong. Yeah, okay. GNX. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just really, I wonder about stuff that becomes too old to really be, used a lot, because the young people, even despite the exodus from cities during the pandemic, we still want to live in fairly dense population. I imagine once people get used to going to restaurants and shit again, they're going to want to be living in the cities again where possible. And there's just not a lot of places to keep stuff. And so, cars that just sit, I think is going to be a tough sell for younger people. Mm-hmm. But what about, Greg, what do you think about like brand name tuner cars, like especially on the JDM side, like cars built by like HKS or Mines or Top Secret, or in the European side, cars by like Roof, Gambala, the brand name tuner cars? Are we seeing a lot of action there?
I don't think we're seeing a ton, but I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, you got to have that person you trust, that brand you trust, that company you trust. We just had, it's a different world, but we had an FJ that was redone by the FJ company. They do a great job. Everybody knows what they do. It's actually at the auction, and it sold for basically what a new one would have cost to redo. So, once you get like the icons, or singers, singers are selling for crazy money because it has a
one
name
just
reputation.
Sold for 1.2 on one of the major auction sites.
Remember Yenko Camaros back in the early those went for big money. That could be the Spoon or the Top Secret of our generation.
True, yeah.
Right.
What was the other one? Not Yenko. Baldwin Motion.
Yeah, I never cared for those. Those are interesting.
They were always just like black with steelies. It was always kind of like blackout stuff as opposed to like the stripy Yenkos.
Right.
I mean, there's definitely Celine Mustangs from the '80s and stuff. Those pull a premium over a standard Fox body for sure. And as long as it's a full build, not just a car with some parts from, whatever.
Right.
Baldwin Motion. Yeah, there we go. 454 Chevy. I said it wasn't stripy like Yenko. Meanwhile, Zach found a super stripy one. Looks like fucking Starsky and Hutch, this thing. It does, yeah. But pretty nasty looking Camaro. Okay. 454. Did it sell? No, is this for sale or sold? This is Mecum Star Car sold. Where's their fucking price?
You got to log in.
Oh, boy. Boy. Well. Log in to view results? You stink. Don't make people log in to view results.
Get that data.
That's no good. That's all we need. All we want are the results. Please help me out here. What is this? 1960 Corvette LM, Greg. What is that?
So that's a cool car. That's one that's kind of, obviously it's a barn find. It's in really rough shape, but it was actually one of 3 Cunningham Corvettes at Le Mans back in 1960. And it was a really crazy story about how it was found. And basically no one knew what it was because it had a earlier model front end clip to it. So it's supposed to have, quad headlights. It only has single headlights. And it took forever for this car to be found, even after they knew what the VIN number was. And I would call it probably the bargain of the auction. I mean, it sold like $700,000, doesn't have the right engine, it's in horrible condition, but all the right stuff's there, all the heritage, all the provenance, all the little bits and pieces. You can tell this was the actual factory race car. So, you spend $700,000, you put $400,000 into total restoration, and it's worth, $2 million, so.
Wow. Yeah, I think, doesn't Bruce Meyer have one of the other ones? Bruce Meyer's got one of these. I think he's got, I forget which one he's got, but he has one of these 3.
So this is the #1 car. So whoever bought that car, I mean, they just need to get it restored, and they're trying to do a reunion in the 65th anniversary of these cars running at Le Mans. It'd be awesome to see all 3 of them there.
So wait, this is the #1 car, but it looks like it has quad headlights.
Yeah,
did they
that's
change
why.
The clip?
Yeah, someone changed it like in the 70s.
They
did made horrible decisions about the car.
Yeah, they didn't. They had no idea what they were fucking up.
Right.
So find that front clip.
Yeah, they did not know what they had at the time. So it's amazing that it was actually found.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Actually, I really like the patina that's happened on the door, just like the layers of paint sanded away there is really crazy.
Well, yeah, so those were sanded away to kind of prove its authenticity. If you go one of the other pictures, you can see the where the center cap gas filler was on the back. I think for that one, you could see where the circle, the light was for the Le Mans Roundel on the side that would light up at night. So it was cool. You know, it's kind of like, well, let's see if, you know, there are some patchwork spots in certain areas of the car to see if this did have a light there at one point, or had the side exhaust clips, you know, because those weren't factory side exhaust cars, but it was for Le Mans. So it was really cool to kind of see the history that you could pull. There's like 24 historical markers on this car that prove it's the real deal, which is really cool, even though it's in really rough shape. So.
Yeah. But I mean, you're right. For you know, as an investment piece, if you have the money ready to get a restoration going and the patience, I think the sum would be greater than the parts at the end, probably.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's it's interesting, you know, when stuff like that happens, because so often the sum is fucking less than the you know, the parts. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, the history on that one's just crazy. I mean, because the other two cars are known and celebrated and, you know, worth a ton of money. So here's an opportunity for someone to get the third one. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. That's cool, man. Big numbers all around, huh? M1's at 417 grand. M1s have been static for a while. That's not that's pretty flat.
Yeah. I'm actually working on hopefully a private M1 sale that's delivery miles only. So we'll see how that goes. You know,
it's interesting that you know, M5s and the modern BMWs are up, and you know, E28 M5s, E30 M3s, and yet M1s sort of stopped here.
Yeah.
Even though there's more than enough BMW enthusiasts to justify the M1 being worth more, and the rarity levels there. What do they make? 400 of these?
Something like that. Yeah. Have you driven one?
I have. 348th of 399 road going examples. I have driven one. I spent a whole day driving one, and it drove really nicely. It actually drove. This is going to sound trite, but it drove like it looks, meaning it felt a lot like my Ferrari 328 or my Countach feels at the front, and then it also, but it had, you know, this snarly BMW engine sound at the back. It was very smooth and very revvy. The shifter felt like other BMW shifters in terms of its sort of rubbery feel. But you know, it was kind of like an 80s Ferrari or Lamborghini at the front, and a little bit like my Countach at the back, but just with a lot less power and torque. I mean, it wasn't very fast. In a straight line, it felt basically the same pace as the E28 M5. But it was really nice. It was a nice place to drive and spend your time, and probably a good way to do a couple 100 miles on a road trip. It was nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good-looking cars. Yeah.
And I drove it at Spartanburg at BMW's test track, and
nice.
I wasn't I mean, I drove it pretty hard, and it didn't break, and I didn't overheat it. I didn't overheat the brakes. Nothing failed. It was a really well-sorted and fun car.
I think they're fine. Like, I think they're not as good-looking as the Lamborghini or Ferrari of the time.
True.
Like, they're okay, but I mean, they have this really flat line in the back. If you took that angle, like, buttress off, it would almost look like half of an El Camino or something. I just think, to answer your question, and this is just my opinion, like, you think, why aren't they going up more? It's like, well, they're too exotic to drive a lot, like an E28 M5, and you know, so you don't want to just drive that, park it. But they don't have the brand recognition of Lamborghini, Ferrari, etc. Someone's like, oh, it's a BMW, okay, like that's not a super exotic company. So it's kind of like lands in this middle ground, you know, and it's not dropped as short as like a Pantera.
So looking at that profile view, is it Jalpa-esque?
It is Jalpa-esque. Yeah.
I love Jalpas. Jalpas are so good looking.
I never drove one, but they're pretty cool. Jalpas are fun.
Yeah, they're undervalued. Well, I don't know. It's all relative, but you know, they're not catching the world on fire, but they're doing a little bit better recently.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people have even heard of them. I think they're so uncommon that you know, even a non-car person kind of knows what a Countach is.
Well, that's better looking than the M1, though.
It is better looking than the M1, and the roof comes off.
Mm-hmm.
It's a V8. It's a transverse V8. If you put two of those transverse V8s next to each other, you get a Chizeta V16T.
We had one of those at Scottsdale. Those things are crazy. Oh,
did you really? Did it sell?
Oh yeah, it did. It did
for
like $650 or so.
Oh, that's yeah. That's because $650 for that car is a park it in the corner of your 40 car collection and go, hey, check this weird thing out, and pop the fucking double headlights up. That car will never be driven again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jalpas look a lot like look a lot like M1s. Yeah, if you like Bauhaus to Jalpa, you'd get an M1.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Jalpa looks better, but you know.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. Look at how similar they are.
The M1 was going to be a Lamborghini until Lamborghini ran out of money.
Yeah.
BMW stepped in and said, all right, well, you know, I guess we got a sports car now. If we're talking about old BMWs, though, you know what I want? I want a Z1. Z1's
really?
the shit. Yeah, because they're stupid. Because I live at the beach, and to me, a BMW Z1 is like my mini moke.
Yeah, these are a sexy mini moke.
Yeah, like I want to roll around the beach with the doors down. You know,
it doesn't only have like half doors, right?
Yeah, the half doors, they drop down into the body, and you know, supposedly you were able to replace the entire body to change the color of the car. You could do that. But it's an E30 under there. It's a 325i.
So it drives good.
Yeah, and you could put an S54 in it also.
Oh,
and you could have a really fucking fast one.
That would be quite the sports car.
They look pretty good. Yeah.
I think they've gotten very expensive. They're like they're knocking on the door of $100,000 for a decent one now.
I've never seen one in person.
Well, because they were never sold in America, and they
never stopped America from bringing them in. But
they're old enough now because they're 1990s. So I mean, you could bring them in.
We got a maroon one around here that I've seen a few times.
I don't know why more people haven't brought them in, but they are damn cool.
They're very cool.
I don't think, man, I've seen one or two in L.A. maybe.
There's a yellow one in L.A. Armin.
Yeah, the yellow one.
For something. It's like a light yellow.
That pale, awful yellow,
yes.
right?
Unsellable yellow, I like to call it.
It's called poison yellow.
I'm finally coming around to Z8s. I haven't been in love with Z8s till about the last couple of years.
Gorgeous.
I think they're pretty slick.
Really?
I like them now.
I think you're late to the party. I liked the manuals very much.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're great running cars. It just took a while for me to warm up to the exterior.
They are. I always liked them, and I don't know. I don't understand how they went from being 100 to 250. I think they've settled a little bit since then. Yeah. But and I'm not really a fan of the automatics because you don't get the same engine. It's not the M5 engine with the automatic. It's like some stroker 4.6 liter. I think it's from the X5. I think it's that 4.6 IS engine, right? Isn't it?
4.4 from the X5?
4.4 maybe?
Sounds good.
4.4? 4.4?
It's not an M engine, but
it's not the M engine with the automatic because they couldn't make the M engine work with the automatic.
But look at that.
I know, it looks great. Looks great.
Yeah, it does.
Fabulous car.
That's a great color combo.
Yeah,
Silver
back
with
when
red.
Henrik Fisker was doing good work. We got a couple of questions from the audience, Greg.
Sure.
I don't know how many are directly for this. Ryan's. Oh, wait. Here we go. M. Denny says, "Is it a seller's market for rollers?" I don't know if he means Rolls Royces or cars that are rolling and not running.
Cars that roll but don't run, because he says, he once asked what should he do to move on from his Fox body project when the crankshaft blew up. So it's project cars. Any insight? Is there a value in project cars? Man, I don't think so. What about a collector car that has a blown engine? I mean, I think the Corvette points out that anything broken, if it's cool enough, will be worth money.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about a car with a history can always be restored. You know what I mean? And that's where the profit lies in and the value lies is if you find the car that has a history that can add value, and it could add even more value if you finish the project. You know what I mean? People are,
It's a big difference if it's a blown 350 and a C1 Corvette, or if it's actually the factory correct engine that is just can still turn over and it just can't run. There's a big difference.
Right.
So, yeah.
Let's see. Ryan says you're driving in the snow, enter a turn, and encounter understeer. How would your correction differ in all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, and rear-wheel drive? Oh, interesting question. You encounter understeer. Well, all three would start with lifting and or braking to shift weight forwards and slow yourself down. But with a rear-wheel drive car, assuming you once got to that and you wanted to fucking hero it out, once you got slow enough to turn to actually, and in fact, if you had understeer, you would straighten the wheel as well, because understeer, you don't turn more if you have understeer. You straighten the wheel, get the car slowed to where you have control, turn back in, and if you can turn in quick enough and have grip to get a little oversteer, you can then countersteer and slide it like a hero. But
you can also do it with all-wheel drive.
You could also do the same thing with all-wheel drive. You would just use less countersteer because you've got your front wheels. With a front-wheel drive car, you'd really just get it slowed down and then kind of coast your way through the corner and not add power really until you have grip and as you're straightening the car out.
Until the nose is pointed where you want to go, you can add power. So it's just a little bit less of a slide. And this also works if you watch people in road courses. Yeah. If they're going and they get understeer, you'll watch the wheel go straight turn, straight turn, straight turn, because they're trying to like grab and slow down.
Okay, here we go. David Steinauer says, I'm building a GT-focused 500 horsepower LT1 powered 240 SX. Oh my God. Wow. I'm shopping for a clutch. How do the standard SS, ZL1, CTSV, and C7 Z06 differ and feel? Bro, you are asking a question that is impossible to answer. I mean, if I had all those cars on the same day, I would be happy to tell you, but the fact is, you're talking about cars we drove over periods of years. On any one of those cars, like the Camaros, like they're pretty much all the same.
Yep.
I mean, for the street cars, stock power level street cars, like to me, there's almost no difference between any of them, at least from this top level perspective, without literally having them back to back to back to drive. I mean, Zach, could you think of anything notable between the clutches in those cars? Like, no.
I don't remember any of them being difficult to operate. The Z0, not even the Z06, because they know with these modern cars, they know that the clutch can't be that difficult to operate.
Yeah.
It's not, if it's a Viper ACR, maybe, because they're like, that's the market that's going for it. But a standard SS needs to be pretty easy to drive in the manual.
Yeah,
and I think ZL1 was, I remember being like a puppy
easy.
Dog. Yeah,
and I feel like with GM, if you're talking about LS or LT based engines, Tremec based gearboxes, and clutches that need to be OEM, level spec and feel for usability, I feel like that GM would try and make the pedal feel of those clutches as similar as possible.
Yep.
And so I think you'd be fine with any of them.
Also,
what I wouldn't get is some crazy racing clutch.
No.
You don't need that. Any of these factory clutches would be fine.
The master cylinder is also going to contribute to that feel.
Yeah.
It's not just about the clutch plate they use. So,
and in my 911, the slave cylinder, we replaced. Marco replaced the slave cylinder, and it changed the weight of the pedal enormously. So there was that too.
It's a lot to that system.
Yeah.
Hey,
Greg,
Matt,
what? Yeah.
I just got a quick question. 240s are huge in drifting. You hear a lot about 240s. What about the 200SX? When's the last time you saw one of those out?
I think the 200SX and the 240SX are both equally, I think people don't like the 200SX because the big glass hatch with drifting. Yeah. I think they'd rather have a regular trunk. But the earlier ones. Yeah, the S13. I think people don't like the glass hatch, right? Isn't that why? Zach, they prefer a regular trunk.
I've never driven one, honestly. Let me look.
I mean, I've seen them.
Yeah, my sister had one in high school, and I love driving that thing, and I just don't ever hear about them.
I mean, they get used up for drifting for sure, but occasionally you'll see one with its really low miles and really clean one owner car, and it'll be worth money like, you know, any other oddball.
Yeah, you
that's
never see
mint.
them.
Yeah. In LA, we do see them around. People do use them as cars here. I see nice 240s around there and 200s.
I'm sure that glass was heavy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? If you're a drifter, you probably wouldn't want a huge glass hatch back there. What is upcoming, Greg? What do we want to talk about for the future RM shows? Anything to highlight?
Yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff. We have the last week, most months we have online only called Open Road. So we always have some cool stuff coming up online only. Monterey, obviously, you're going to be at Monterey.
I haven't decided yet. Do you want to give me a reason to be at Monterey, and then I'll come?
Well, a lot of cool, fun car stuff. Is that enough? No.
I mean, there is, but like I need like a gig. You know, unfortunately, you know. When your whole life is cars, it's hard to justify doing cars as a vacation. You know,
well, I can agree with that. Yeah. One thing I'm doing is not to the Matt Farah level, but I am going to do a watch promo with my podcast. I'm giving away a Porsche Driver's Essential Classic watch. Oh. And so what I'm going to do is
that like a Porsche design watch?
Yeah. And then actually the following months I'm going to do a Martini Racing watch. Anyway, so your listeners, when they listen to your interview on my podcast, they can win a watch. Yeah, they got a lot of watch folks out there. So it's not a tag, it's not a Rolex, it's not.
Porsche design makes nice shit.
Yeah,
they make good stuff, sure. Dude. There's absolutely you don't have to disclaimer Porsche design. They make dope stuff. That's a real watch manufacturer.
Yeah, no, they make good stuff. So if you're looking for a Porsche watch, you can check it out. So yeah.
All right. Well, oh, sorry. Keep going. I apologize.
No, you're showing my that's my old Mustang. I sold my 99, or I sold from my 99 996 at the website there.
I think you moved
so a little
up.
bit.
I think you upgraded.
Well, you know, I wanted the opposite of a 66 Mustang convertible. Which
it is,
I'm
yeah,
like,
basically.
That's a 911. So,
Greg's podcast, the Collector Car Podcast, we've got up on the screen right now. I am going to do an episode of that show, which we're going to record just after this. And I imagine lots of good insights there because you're an insider at RM. And I appreciate your time, dude. Thanks for talking with us today. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Zach. And thank you. Over on your show, we're going to talk about my top 10 collectible cars, my dream list, I believe, as well as what's happening upcoming at Pebble Beach this year. That's our show. For the live audience with us, we're going to be back at 3:30 p.m. today with Chris Paukert of CNET Roadshow doing a doubleheader on this Friday because Zach was out of town and we got to catch up. So that's it for us for this show, and we'll see you later today with a crew show featuring Chris Paukert, and we're going to get to a lot of those questions that you left behind with our other shows. So we'll follow up on those. Don't worry, we haven't forgot you, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.